So I feel like one of the struggles with amateurs is that we don't really know exactly how to have like a productive practice round. Like we always go through and play the courses that we have tournaments on, but we don't really like have a method to our madness when playing it. So in this video, I thought I'd talk about a few tips with this guy about how he preps for tournaments. Because if you didn't know, last week he played a 4-round, 2-day tournament, and he got here 2 days before the tournament. So he practiced all 4 courses in 2 days, and he still averaged, like you averaged 1,000, right?
No, I averaged 983. Not that good, but all right.
He shot close to 1,000 on 2 days of practice on courses he's never played before. So he basically had one rushed round of disc golf to practice on each course, and he still shot well. So we thought I'd talk about a few tips on how to prep for
First one, don't do that ideally.
Yeah, ideally you want to not do that, but we're going to talk about how to have a productive practice round while we play Black Hoof easy.
Yeah, Black Hoof way too easy.
So like Black Hoof has like a small putter course for beginners right next to it. So we just got our butts kicked at Black Hoof. We both shot you weren't double digits. You were 9.
Almost.
So not double digits. I shot double digits.
Yeah, I need a little more work in the woods this year, but not a little more work to ace. Ooh.
Oh, that was juiced. How far is this?
199 feet.
Yep, that is not, didn't even look at the distance. So the first point to prepping for tournaments is basically like working on the fundamentals, which are putting and upshots. Because like regardless of the course, that is gonna be probably the biggest differentiator, especially for AMs.
So when I think about the fundamentals, the main things I think about are like putting and upshots, because if you can get up and down within 200 feet so you don't have to putt, it does like multiple things. One, upshots help reduce your stress a lot, because if you do hit like a first available tree or you hit a tree down the fairway and you're able to have a shot that you're not trying to make, but you try to put close to the basket and you do that, it gives you like a vote of confidence for the next times that you're throwing the disc. I'm gonna putt that one out real fast. And it also alleviates a lot of stress. Thanks for putting the disc in your bag.
Yours.
Because one of the things I think a lot about in tournaments is accumulated stress, which is like bad decision making or trying to go for crazy things and not executing. But the less I have to make like 25 to 30 foot putts, the more likely if I have one of those later in the round, I'm gonna make it, because I have less stress over the course of the rounds. Last year, I played a couple tournaments blind that are on my channel that I like threw the disc into so many first trees, but because I put 100% circle 1 and made some circle 2 putts, I shot like 970 rounds. And one of my first MA1 wins, shot like 994, I think. My putting was 100% circle 1 in the first round. It was like my first 1,000, it was a 1,008 round, and I played that course blind. So if you can putt, you'll be able to save yourself a lot of strokes, especially on the AM field, because now that I'm starting to play MPO, I can less rely on people like missing their putts from 30 feet. But I remember when I was playing MA2 and MA1, there's a lot of times where someone's at 30 feet and like it's not a given that they're gonna make that putt, even 20, 25. So if you can make all those putts, you have a lot of, I don't know, I'm rambling, but you'll play very well. So practice putting and upshots.
And like the opposite is true. Like I have so many tournaments that I have completely lost because of my upshots and my putting. So like this last round, I probably gained like 6 or 7 strokes out of my 10 over par solely because I just botched my upshot or I missed a putt. Like I felt like I was getting off of the tee very well on most of the holes. Anthony still beat me because I just could not get up and down to save my life.
Yeah, and I was not throwing well. I was not throwing well for one, and just the like upshot tips, definitely like you want to go out into a field or whatever and practice, or just go into a course and like if you don't have time to play whatever rounds besides your casual rounds, you're going into a tournament, I'd highly recommend like if you throw a really good shot and you're close to the basket, just go to 200 feet in front of the basket and throw 1 or 2 up shots with whatever disc you'd want. A lot of times you can like stable up, because the more overstable it is, like a zone, a lot of people throw that for up shots because it's not going to glide too far past the basket. One of the reasons we're out here on the course today is I threw so many up shots, like 30 or 40 long in my last tournament, and had to make some putts and ended up missing a couple because my discs were gliding a little more than I expected now that I'm down here at sea level. So we're out here trying to like figure out how my discs are flying for me, and also hopefully giving you guys a couple good tips at least. That's right side. Jeez.
That's not an ace.
P1 ace or PA ace?
PA ace?
PA ace?
That one's free of charge, Prodigy.
Also, hyzers are your friend, because the more you can throw hyzers and 1-angle shots, the better. Not like that.
And that is our second point. Like I think Robbie had a video about that. It's the most consistent shot that everyone should have in their bag. So finding the hyzer in whatever course that you can get will be most consistent, easily repeatable, and it's just would help you score better. So if you only have 1 round and then you got to compete, hyzers are it.
Yeah, biggest things with fighting hyzers and like my plans with that in tournaments are like multifold. One, real fast, like if you can't throw a hyzer, because last year I really could not throw hyzers. If you can't throw hyzers at all, that might be something in your form that you want to look at. But the reason why throwing hyzers is so important, and basically what I look at, it's kind of hard on this course because it's all pitch and putt, but I'm trying to look at what is the best miss and the easiest way to get to the basket most repeatably and consistently. And for the most part, that's a hyzer. If you're in the woods, you have a line to hit, that's going to be a little bit different. You have to shape that shot. But if I can find a way to throw a hyzer, and that's why like you see a lot of pros, like they'll like try to break holes out on tour. Like I remember at the Cascade Challenge on like hole 16 or something, they found like this crazy hyzer that they were all throwing. It's just because they know that throwing that hyzer is the most consistent way to get to the basket without having to worry about how the mid-flight is gonna react. Throwing hyzer is basically like throwing darts. So if you can find a hyzer line that you can reach, if you can only throw 350 feet and the basket's straight in the middle, but it's 370 feet, maybe you have to throw the flex shot or your max distance shot to get there, but you can also just throw 2 simple hyzers and execute a par if you can't reach that hole anyway. So throwing hyzers and trying to break down the hole, but in just the most simple way, especially, that's like every time I walk up to a hole, I'm trying to see what's the simplest way to take a birdie, and if I can't take a birdie, what's the simplest way to take a par? Do I always do the simplest way to take a par? No, because I want to throw the hero shots, and that's really stupid in a tournament, but it's really fun for a YouTube video, so it doesn't always work out.
If you want a good example of this, then I would go look at pretty much any tournament where Aaron Gossage is on coverage, because that's like all he does is throw hyzers. Like look at Worlds last year and Emporia Country Club, Aaron Gossage just found a way to throw a hyzer on every hole. So like Paul would try to like work a drive, Aaron Gossage would just hyzer every time. And like that's how he was so consistent and was able to keep up with Paul and lead actually the tournament for pretty much all of 5 rounds. So, because he just kept going hyzers. Then our third tip is gonna be like throw all the shots, not just like the golden shot. Cause like pros, they throw a lot of shots off the tee in their practice rounds. Like if you watch Ezra and Brody's practice rounds, they throw a lot of different shots off the tee, and AMs see that and they're like, oh, throw a lot of drives. So I'm gonna try to hit that perfect drive and just throw that same shot 6 times. That's not the way. Like maybe try a couple times, but like at La Bonite, for example, in our practice round, like Anthony, like he threw like a safe shot, like a really good shot at the mid-range. Then he looked at it and was like, I think I might be able to get there with the heat. So then he went through his heat. And it's one of those things where it's like
par 5, yeah.
Yeah, on that long par 5, yeah, sorry. So it was good to like go for it, to be able to see like what happens if he could go for it. But he also played safe to like be able to make that decision in the tournament to go for it or not. Cause like I feel like a lot of AMs either err on one side or the other. They either like only practice the hero shot and they just go for everything all the time consistently, or they only practice the safe shots, which is probably where I land. And like, I look at the hero shot and it's like, I'm not dumb enough to do that in a tournament, so I'm not gonna practice it. But then it's like, if you need it, like Anthony practiced it. No.
PX3 is money. Stay up. Yeah, so actually on that hole, that came into fruition. But real fast before I talk about like the story that happened on that hole, a lot of the things is like on a hole like this, if this is what you're playing, you probably only need to practice 2 or 3 shots. One, I'd say like 200 foot, I'm probably gonna throw a hyzer with the zone on the right side. I would probably like practice another one with another zone if I had it, and that we'll probably play in a tournament. Probably throw like the straight up the middle shot with my pure. Slightly flippy, kind of gets there. And then probably try a forehand with the ultra, which there is a right to left wind, so we're gonna have to leave it out a little more left. Swing back. That was not the best, but the reason for that is pretty much dependent on wind. That's the main reason why I practice a lot of these, to give my body reps doing it. The wind right now is coming from the left to the right, and so that first zone forehand was the perfect shot. I'm pretty sure it's like pretty much under the basket. Whereas this ultra shot was a little touchy, because I thought that the wind would push it a little bit more, it didn't quite, but come the tournament, the wind might be pushing from the right to the left. And so having practiced that forehand and know that like your body is confidence and you and your mind have confidence that you can get there with the ultra or whatever overstable mid-range you want to throw, or maybe even the zone, it'll be good because fighting against the wind when it's coming from the right to the left with the forehand is a better idea than trying to be really touchy with throwing the backhand again. Oh, too much wind. All right, we're not throwing the pier next time, I guess, but back to my round at Lob and Neat. That par 5, basically, I knew there were a couple ways that I could play even the first shot, because it's just a low skip shot. I decided to throw my Ultra overstable mid-range, and it landed me about 50 feet shorter from where I practiced an upshot in that round that got me to about 50 feet for eagle. Now that was with the heat, and I looked and I had a pretty similar line, so I knew I could try to take it. I could like pitch around and play for an easy par, or I could try to go for the eagle. And it's basically because even though I didn't put a disc there in practice with any of my tee shots, I knew that it's a potential landing zone that I could have landed in, so I practiced upshots from it on kind of placement par 4s. So if there is an ideal landing zone or even a bad landing zone that you're like, I might get in here during the round, you might want to practice that as well as where your discs land off the tee. But you also, similar to what David was saying about what the pros will do in practice, the main reason that they're throwing so many, like they're throwing hyzer shots, they're seeing every single way they can get to the basket, is in case the conditions change, or this is something that I've recently been like really developing, is like my confidence with a specific shot has changed. Because all last week and all like the past 3 weeks of tournaments in Denver, I was really loving my hyzers because I knew my flip points with all my discs. So I would just be able to throw everything on a hyzer. I would know where it would flip to. I would know how far it would turn over. I know when it come back. Here, I started throwing a couple hyzers in the first round of the tournament and the first shot in the second round of the tournament. And then I actually had to take that disc out of my bag because I'm like, I don't know how much is flipping up because it's a different elevation. And so I started throwing everything on anhyzers. And so having practiced both the hyzer and the anhyzer lines on most of those holes, I was confident that I could go to those anhyzer shots because I had practiced them. And sometimes you're just not gonna feel the hyzer. Sometimes you're not gonna feel the anhyzer. Today, I sucked at forehands. So I stopped throwing forehands and threw a lot of backhands. So you're in the tournament, you never kind of know how you're gonna react. And so having practiced all those shots gives you the confidence to step up and be able to execute them. Parked it. Can I ace this real fast? Is that cool?
Dude, go for it.
Oh. This is a good example of the last hole where like you got that straight out line, which I just tried to throw with the pure, but look at how wide that right side gap is, and you have to think about your miss. That might be the next thing to talk about.
Also like spike.
A big spike?
Yeah, like over the trees. Just spike it in there.
That'll play. So that's a shot that like you'd practice that big spike, you'd practice throwing it low up that side gap, right up the middle, like David's about to ace it.
No.
Thing. Like an ante gap through the left side, the forehand through the left side, all gaps that like you might want to practice depending on how the wind is and how you actually like want to throw and what discs you're liking that day. Like there are some tournaments where I'll only throw like 4 or 5 discs for the most part because I'm just liking those. I could throw a bunch of other ones, but I'm really just liking those 5 discs.
And that kind of like moves into our fourth point that we were thinking, and that is to like practice the bad shots as well. Ace?
No, wow. There's a little bit of right to left wind. I did not feel that at all.
So I think this is one of the bigger ones that separate the AMs from the pros. That's because we throw a lot of shots and we shank them left and right more than pros. But whenever we do, especially in our practice rounds, we don't really want to play the really bad ones. We want to play like the fun ones that we threw right. Well, like in the tournament, you only get 1 shot. So if you throw it shanked into the woods, you don't want that to be the first time you've ever been there and ever looked at it and ever thrown from there. And part of that does come down to some fundamentals of like scrambling. So like having a step out forehand, having a patent pending backhand can help a lot. But I think that's what gives local pros and local AMs a much bigger advantage over like people visiting, is because they've played it so much. They've been just about everywhere that you could be on the hole. So you're really doing yourself a disservice by not practicing the bad shots that you shank or you throw OB or whatever.
Show us a shank. Yeah. That's in the middle of the fairway. If only all of our shanks were like that, David. If only. I'd say one thing too that I noticed a lot in my tournaments is when I'm in a tournament, I get a little amped and like my pressure is really up. And so I'm a little more tight. And a lot of that, especially when I have like a step out forehand, that I'm like wanting to carry some distance up the fairway, which maybe is not the best idea. Maybe like pitch in the middle of the fairway, but like if you have the shot, because like I'd be able to step out and throw these forehands, a lot of times, like even here, I'm so tense, I'm so tight, I'm really trying to force it and muscle it like it's a like distance forehand. You really want to be a little looser and focus on your wrist on both forehand and backhand. Just focus on spinning the disc instead of throwing the disc hard, because if you spin it on the right line, you're gonna give it enough speed to keep the spin up, and it's gonna go a lot better for you. So really, even on these like little 170-foot touch shots, if I'm trying to get around here, I don't wanna like force it. I wanna give it a nice, simple spin down the fairway. I know he kicked away, but we're inside the circle, I think. That is not as flippy there.
That was an example of a shank shot. You want to practice that putt.
True.
Skip up. Get it? Ooh. And I think like one of the perfect examples of this is Paul Macbeth. I feel like there's so many times, especially in Worlds, when he just like clutches up all the time. He gets into situations that are like pretty bad, and then he makes some incredible save and scramble and puts himself like right by the basket, or like some impossible landing zone that we didn't think that you could get to from that spot.
So that's what you should expect to do every time.
No, but I guarantee you 95% of the time, those shots where he does those incredible scrambles, he practiced that in his practice rounds, for sure.
Or has had enough practice rounds over time that he's practiced that shot on that course.
One of the things is 2019 Worlds? No, it was 2021 Worlds when he lost to James Conrad. Rip.
Get in the air.
So 2021 at the Fort, I can't remember which hole it was. Rude. But Paul like shanked it off of the tee, and he was in a really bad spot. Like he is absolute jail, like from watching on the camera, and even like the commentators, like they knew the spot he was in, and they were just like, birdie, completely out of the question here. And I can't remember if he was like trailing, tied, or like just one up. It was close, so he like needed to keep getting birdies. And he literally like, right out of the hand, you would think he just shanked it again, but he literally threw it straight into a fence, kicked it, and kicked around, and he parked it. And I'm pretty sure they asked him in an interview afterwards, and he was like, yeah, I practiced that like in my practice rounds. Like I saw that, and I practiced to see like how well that it bounces off of that fence. So like that wasn't the first time he did that, and it's like there's no way he would have even tried that if he hadn't done that in practice. And because of that, he was able to clutch it up and be a throwing away from three-peating in his 30s. Did you ever think about that? He would have three-peated if James Conrad didn't throw it in. When he was washed, accordingly, apparently.
Is he gonna be washed this year after going to Europe and then win again?
Well, I mean, he's been not doing well at all, but it's like, just wait till Worlds, so he'll get it together.
I think the next major thing is like how to think about the mental game and how to think about not only your practice, but the rounds. Especially, I get a lot of questions from like people who are playing their first tournaments who are like, what do I need to do? And I say first is breathe. Remember to breathe during your tournament. It's something that like my nerves have gone down the more tournaments I played, and that's just playing in a tournament is just an experience-based thing. It's a skill, just like playing disc golf and throwing the disc is playing in a tournament. So I'd say definitely relax in your first couple tournaments. You're probably gonna play worse than you did or than you might expect. And the other thing is, I heard this on a Yuli and Brody podcast, Tour Life, I think, where they're saying, Yuli was talking about how he doesn't have expectations, he has goals. And that's something that I struggle with a lot because I expect a lot of myself. As you guys can tell if you watch a lot of my videos, I'm very hard on myself a lot of times. I don't need to be that way. I think there's like a healthy balance to fit where it's like, I know my skill level and what I want to play up to, and that can push me forward. But if I'm not playing up to it and I'm like dragging myself down, it can go in the wrong direction very fast. So try to go shot by shot. Think about the next shot, don't think about the score. There's like a bunch of like little ramblings of like things that I think about throughout my tournament because it's never the same. There's always like different things that I'm trying to think about in every single event. Set yourself a goal that is very achievable, and then one that is a little bit less achievable, and one that's a little bit less achievable. Like my goals were winning this last tournament, and then after that I was top 10, and then it was cashing. And after the first round, I was tied 36 out of 68 people. So I was even out of the cash line. So then it's like, let's get back into the cash. After the second round, I was tied 16th. And so I was like, let's get back into top 10. And then I just hovered around at 15th because I didn't really play any great rounds after that. But I was able to cash, so I'm not mad about this. I'm not frustrated by this tournament at all. And I know that there's room for improvement, and I can take that into the next event without being down on myself for not winning the tournament or getting top 10 or getting a top 3. It's something that I can take and learn because every single event, even every round, is a place to learn something. And this one is to learn how to ace. Good shot though. That's what the Ultra's bred for, baby. Or just the air ace. Oh, just short.
So the other thing with expectations is I did not expect to make that putt. There you go. When you have expectations, that is when the frustration really comes into play on your round. Like I think Paul Macbeth even said that he likes to go into every tournament with no expectations, which that is really hard for me to believe for like the best player in the world to not have any expectations on how he performs in tournaments. But I find myself like playing better disc golf when I don't have expectations on myself. Just going out, playing, what happens, happens. I feel like that is when I play my best disc golf. And when I don't is when I'm like, okay, I know what I can shoot and what I should shoot, and then trying to shoot exactly that. That's when I start getting frustrated. I start missing my putts. It's just really bad. It is a hard thing to balance. I'm not perfect at it. That's why I'm not a pro. I make YouTube videos.
Same. I think too, with the expectations, one thing that I've learned is like, I'm very okay with having expectations for each shot, because I walk up to every shot and I try to have a lot of confidence in it. And so I expect to hit my line. If I don't hit my line, I'm frustrated in it, but it has to reset before the next shot. You can't bring that into the next shot. I'm okay with being frustrated in my rounds. Like, some people tell me that like, maybe I should probably be more positive, and maybe that's the case. And like, I am trying to overall be more positive, and especially the next shot, like not bringing that into the next shot, but you have to go shot by shot in your tournaments. And like, I missed a 20-foot putt for my first circle one miss, my second round last week. And I was so frustrated about it for so long. And I think that that's okay, because I didn't bring it into the next round. And as long as that happens, like, let yourself feel things, because if you don't and you bottle it up, maybe that's not good. But yeah, I also don't know what I'm talking about. I'm only like 960 rated, so don't listen to us.
I feel like it's also different for every single person.
Yeah.
So like, you might be fine to have an expectation for the throw and completely just like throw it out away for the next shot, when others might have a hard time with that. So if you have a hard time with that, then try not having expectations for it. So the mental game is just, that's why golf and disc golf are so difficult, because it's like, it's you against the course and you against your own head. So.
Yeah, because if you've hit the line once before, if it wasn't for the mental game, you'd hit the line almost every time.
Yeah.
And so that's why sometimes you suck.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have other tips or tricks for preparing for tournaments on short notice, which I feel like most AMs do have a short time to practice for most tournaments, put them in the comments. But otherwise, we're gonna go get Chipotle, because I owe this man a double protein burrito at Chipotle.
We're gonna ace this next hole first though. It's hole 9, so
yeah,
we'll ace it, and then so that'll be electric for you to finish watching the video. And if we don't ace it, then you didn't hear this conversation.
Yep. Bye. So this one is actually 206, literally straight behind that tree. So even if we did ace it, it would not make for good content, because you can't see it. So, all right,
so
thanks for watching. Bye.
That was terrible. 2 nose up.